Hezbollah leader Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah knows that he is in the crosshairs, and he has begun moving some of his most powerful precision-guided missiles into firing positions as the entire region holds its breath. Meanwhile, diplomats are trying hard to find a way to convince Israel not to attack Hezbollah, and Lebanese residents are taking to the streets to beg Hezbollah not to start a major war with Israel, but Hezbollah does not appear to be listening to them. A Hezbollah UAV was intercepted on its way to hit an Israeli natural gas platform in the Mediterranean Sea in the last 24 hours, and the IDF hit several Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, while also hitting military bases in Syria linked to the Iranian-sponsored forces. Elsewhere, the war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip continues, as the last 24 hours saw heavy fighting in Rafah and Khan Yunis, while the Air Force launched strikes on 35 targets throughout the Gaza Strip. In Judea and Samaria, Hamas held graduation ceremonies for some of their young recruits, including an attempt to plant explosives near Israeli communities. So let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your boots on the ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 298th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all of its proxy terror groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. I want to start today's report with a short explanation of the term fake news and why it is so important to find the truth in general, but especially in regards to Israel. Monday's front page of the Washington Post, one of the most influential newspapers in the United States, had a large picture of the funeral of Jewish children murdered by Hezbollah in a rocket strike on the village of Majdal Shams on Saturday. However, the headline underneath that picture read, "Israel attacked targets in Lebanon." This presentation gave the impression that the funeral in the picture was for Lebanese children that Israel killed with its airstrikes. This presentation gave the impression that the funeral in the picture was caused by the Israeli attack in Lebanon. In this subtle but sophisticated way, the Washington Post presents factual pieces of information out of context that will result in the readers believing the false narrative, in other words, a lie. In doing so, the Washington Post actually did Hezbollah, and by extension Iran, a big favor. When the media outlets that people count on to provide them with information do such a sloppy job, even if they're not deliberately trying to present a false narrative, they help the forces of evil and damage the forces of good and the truth. Speaking of Hezbollah, they are trying with some success to deny that the missile that hit the Majdal Shams village in Israel was fired by them, and instead trying to say that an Israeli Iron Dome interceptor went off course and hit the village. They are trying desperately to avoid a conflict with Lebanon's Druze community, and they're also trying to avoid Israeli retaliation for that strike. They know that a great way for Israel to retaliate would be assassinate senior Hezbollah leaders, including Hassan Nasrallah. The IDF is keeping its cards close to the chest, despite calls by some to go into Lebanon immediately with guns blazing. This could result in damage to civilian infrastructure in Lebanon, which would cause tension with the Americans and Europeans. Even if the damage is mostly contained to military sites in Lebanon, it could lead to several days of intense rocket bombardment of Israeli cities. So all of these things must be taken in account in the planning and execution of Israel's retaliation. The fact that Israel is taking its time and not in a rush to retaliate is another reason to believe that the course of action that has been decided upon is to retaliate by hitting senior Hezbollah leaders. As we discuss these issues, it is important to remember that whatever Israel decides to do, it will come in retaliation for a Hezbollah massacre of Israeli children as they were trying to play soccer, which is the most natural thing in the world for children to do. But Hezbollah launched an Iranian-made Falak-1 missile towards the soccer field straight from the village of Sheba in southern Lebanon. The launch path that was published by the IDF indicates that Hezbollah was actually aiming at the field and not at the nearby military IDF outpost, as the terrorist organization initially claimed before changing their story to say that they didn't launch the missile at all. The AP news agency reported on Monday that in the shadow of the assessments of an Israeli response to the massacre in Majdal Shams, Hezbollah began moving some of its precision-guided missiles to prepare them for use. In related news, an Israeli Navy SAR-6 corvette intercepted a Hezbollah drone on Monday evening as it was heading from Lebanese territory into Israeli economic waters, apparently targeting Israel's natural gas platforms. This is the second time in 3 days that such an event has occurred, and it represents another major escalation by Hezbollah. Also, on Monday, Israeli aircraft in cooperation with the 210th Division struck a Hezbollah infrastructure in Kfar Hammam, from which rockets were launched into the Mount Dov area in northern Israel. Also, in the last day, the IDF attacked and eliminated a terrorist cell of Hezbollah that was identified operating in the area of Mis el-Jabal, along with attacking other terrorist infrastructure in the area of southern Lebanon. Hezbollah also fired a barrage of about 20 rockets that fell in open areas near the Goma junction in northern Israel. There were no casualties from this barrage, and no warning was triggered in line with the standard IDF policy. However, a few minutes after the launches were detected, fighter jets attacked and destroyed the launcher which fired this barrage located in the Hula region of southern Lebanon. This is a good place to invite you to subscribe to the TBN Israel Instagram channel to stay informed on the latest news from Israel every time of the day. We will continue providing you with the truth in real time so you can pray for Israel and the situation in this region. Turning our attention to the situation in the Gaza Strip, the IDF forces remain heavily engaged with the remnants of Hamas in several locations throughout the Palestinian enclave of Gaza. The combat teams of the Givati and 401 brigades under the command of Division 162 are fighting in the Rafah area, clearing this strategic city of Hamas forces and destroying the smuggling tunnels that it depends on. A similar story is playing out in Khan Yunis, where the combat teams of the 7th Brigade and the paratroopers under the command of the 98th Division continue the fight. This is the second time that the paratroopers have had to enter Khan Yunis, as they were part of the force that cleared this city in the previous rounds of fighting that ended in early May. This time, the effort is focused on the El Karara neighborhood, which the IDF has not yet entered. It is a relatively wealthy neighborhood, and the residents were quick to respond to the IDF's calls to evacuate, leaving the buildings empty except for terrorists who used them to fire at the IDF troops that are passing by. At the same time, the paratroopers brigade entered Khan Yunis again last week. This is the second time for them in the city. In the previous round, they were here for 3 months and receiving fire from machine guns and small arms. This operation by the paratroopers, like its predecessors, is based on intelligence. Part of it is collected in advance. On the basis of it, the forces raid houses, locate and destroy tunnels, and search for hostages. Much of this intelligence is collected during the activity in the field and outlines the way forward. The effort now is to destroy the large offensive tunnel with which the IDF has a long account from the past. This is a 27-meter deep tunnel that was located a decade ago during Operation Cast Iron, and the last part of it, the one that reaches near the fence, was destroyed. But Hamas has rebuilt it, and the task now is to destroy it completely, from its starting point in the Qatari neighborhood of Khan Yunis to its eastern end near the border with Israel, right across from an Israeli kibbutz called Kisufim. Meanwhile, the Air Force attacked about 35 terrorist targets in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, destroying fixed positions of Hamas, as well as engaging terrorist squads in the act of attempting to attack IDF ground troops. Hey, it's time to take an active part in spreading the truth. So please support us by subscribing to this YouTube channel so that we can continue bringing you the truth about Israel and what is happening in this region. If you'd like to receive more videos like this one, please consider making a financial donation to us through the link in the bottom of the screen, or go to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel so that we can continue to produce real-time and quality content about Israel. Back to the news. In Judea and Samaria, on Monday, terrorists fired at several Israeli communities and set off explosive devices in the vicinity on an unusual scale, even in relation to the current events. This phenomenon, whereby young Palestinians celebrate their graduation from high school by shooting off fireworks, is well known to everyone who lives in Judea and Samaria and along the border. However, this was not just the usual fireworks show. Terrorists launched an unusual attack in northern Samaria, firing 5 ammunition and explosive charges in the direction of Israeli communities. Some of them even filmed themselves carrying out these attacks. So keep spreading the truth, share, and follow our videos, and take a minute to find the follow button and click it so that you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. We conclude our report by bringing you some news from Syria, where Israeli aircraft attacked 2 air defense bases of the Syrian army in the western sector of Dara, according to reports in foreign media portals. No injuries were reported in these attacks, although the Syrian military doesn't like to admit it when they lose soldiers to Israeli actions because it makes them look helpless in the face of the Israeli power. On that subject, it is always important to remember that the real enemy Israel is facing in all of these conflicts is Iran. Iran provides enormous financial and military support to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Syrian Shiite militias, and even the forces loyal to the Assad regime, which rules Syria. But that's not just what they're doing in the Middle East. Iran is also spending large amounts of money trying to influence the elections in the United States by actively sabotage the campaign of former President Donald Trump. These activities were revealed on Monday by a report in the Wall Street Journal newspaper. The report quoted senior sources in the American intelligence community, and it differed from previous assessment that Iran was merely trying to promote chaos in the American election system. Apparently, someone in Tehran has decided that it's not enough that America be chaotic, but that it's more important that Trump not be elected president, as he is likely to take a much tougher stance with Iran if he is. According to the sources quoted in the Wall Street Journal report, Iran uses a wide network of figures and propaganda agents in order to spread disinformation, but also run separate funded campaigns on the internet aimed at harming Trump's chances of being elected. American intelligence officials have shared this information with legacy media outlets while also repeating their assessment that as dangerous as Iran activities are, the main threat to the entirety of the elections remains disinformation campaigns coming out of Moscow. With all of this in mind, it is vitally important to stay tuned to the truth. Fake news serves the forces of evil and terror in order to attack the innocents. Therefore, together, we have to spread the truth. So please share and follow us and subscribe to this YouTube channel and pray. This is a spiritual war, so please unite with us in prayer. Pray for the Druze people that lost 12 precious boys and girls. Pray for the Israeli hostages that are being kept in the Gaza Strip. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are risking their lives every day. And pray for the peace of Israel.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.